Hi, this is Don Rosenberger with Roadrunner Photography Tours. I'm putting together a video to show you how I blend my light painting. If you look at this picture of this old sewing machine from it's at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I do a workshop there every year on how to light paint, and then we get a few hours to light paint in the asylum after dark. So as you can see from the picture, not everything at the asylum is creepy or spooky. But anyway, they have this old sewing machine, and I had seen it before, and I was there a few weeks ago, and I thought, well, let me see what I can do with it. So anyway, it's a blend of several different images, and I just wanted to show you the final image. And we're going to reblend it, and it might not be exactly the same, but it should be pretty close, because I know what I want it to look like. But anyway, over on the right side of the screen, the video isn't really going to delve into this too much, but you're looking at the finished product. But as you can see, my background layer that's I've compressed 4 or 5 different layers into this one single image. Then I use a little bit of Pro Contrast from Nik Filters, or I guess it's Google now, but it's the Nik Filters from the Color Efex Pro. Then I also use a little bit of tonal contrast, and when I say a little bit, I mean just a little bit. I found with light painting, just a little contrast goes a long way. Then I sharpened it a little bit, and then I applied a vignette filter, but as you can see here, I didn't accept it on its own. What I did was, there's a layer mask where you can see I've painted in certain parts of the picture. For instance, right up here in the top, let me grab the hand tool. This part here, I wanted this line to come down. It's a kind of a dominant line in the picture, and I wanted it to be bright. I didn't want a vignette obviously clouding that, so I painted the vignette out of this area. But on the right side of this screen, I let the vignette fall. I let it fall around the right lower corner. So just, but then of course I took a little bit of it out here. Because I want this curve. So I just want to give you a little thought process into the finished product. And then of course a little bit of Avesa to just lighten and darken a few little tiny select areas. Let's say I'll just click that off. It's a very minor difference. So basically I've just darkened this area right here a little bit. Had just a little more glare than I wanted, so I just took it down a notch. So anyway, so that's the finished product. So let's go ahead and get started on recreating this. Now, you always have to start with some type of layer as a base layer. I'm going to go ahead and open this one, and this is going to be my base layer. For the most part, I don't think there were a lot of adjustments in Camera Raw. Well, actually, Camera Raw would have retained those adjustments if they had been there. So I think the answer to that is probably no. Okay, then we'll bring this one in and open this. Okay, and we're just going to start with these 2 images right now. Okay, so blending in Photoshop, it's really simple. It's easy. So just on the left side of the screen, I'm going to grab the Move tool, top left, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click in the middle of the image, drag up to the tab for the first image, bring that back in, release the mouse, release the Shift key, it automatically aligns. Now, of course, all this did was put the second layer right on top of the first one, so none of the first is really shining through. It's all the second layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mask over this first layer, and I'm going to paint just what I want. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click on the layer mask, which is on the bottom right side of the screen, right above the little trash can icon here. So it's just right there. Okay, now you can see I've blackened this out. Now the layer mask is totally black. Black hides, white reveals. So that's just a little simple thing. If you can remember that one saying, black hides, white reveals, you'll always know what you're doing when you're blending. So I need to change. Over here's my color palette for my brush, and I clicked on just a brush tool. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hit this little inversion arrow here to swap the colors to put white on top. That means that my brush color will now be white. Now just real quick, let's go up to the top of the menu, or just below the Photoshop menu. This is basically it's showing you all the settings for the brush tool. You've got size, you've got hardness, you've got different brushes that you could choose in here. I'm just choosing a standard brush with a 10% hardness. I'll show you when I start creating a little bit of a mask what that means. And as far as blend mode, I'm doing normal. I'm going to move my opacity up to 100%. Okay, click out of that. Now let's start painting. So, as I recall, before the mask, we can double click. Whoops. We're going to disable the layer mask, and just to show you. And remember, it's just basically the foreground that's lit, the sewing machine and this rug that's in front of the sewing machine. So let's go ahead and re-enable the mask. Okay, I've got my brush tool, and as you can see, I'm now painting on it to let the light shine through. And just bring that around. Hit that again. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what this looks like with the mask. Actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and I'm going to change my hardness up to 100%, which means the edge of the brush is going to have a very hard edge, and I'm just going to paint down here where the rug is below the machine. As you can see where I'm painting, it's a very hard edge. It's night and day between the two. Whereas up here on the sewing machine, the edges are a little softer, a little less defined. Now, if we hold down the Alt or Option key and click on the layer mask, you can now see the difference in the masks. This mask where I was painting in the sewing machine has a very soft, almost undefined edge, and that's at 10% hardness. If I went to 0% hardness, it would even be a little more, or not a little softer. Of course, down here on the bottom, you have a very hard edge, which doesn't work for me in the type of blending that I do. So we're going to take that back down to 10%, and I'm just going to paint right over the edges of it, and that'll turn that into a nice soft blend. So let's hold down the Option key, click on that again. Now we've got that back. Now I'm going to make my brush a little larger because I want to speed this along. If you work with a small brush, things could get a little tedious. Now, one thing I noticed as I'm painting the sewing machine, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this, is that when I painted in the sewing machine, the background, the rug just behind the sewing machine, got a little darker, and I don't want to lose that light from back there. Now on my original image, I actually used a different image and as you can see, I'm putting this in, and we're getting a little bit brighter in the background. And I'm going to run this right along the edge of the sewing machine just to kind of bring that back. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're going to use that one image for. So let's just go pick one more that has a little something different and see what we can do. Okay. This one, nope, I don't want to scroll through, grab. Okay. I'm looking to see what I want to use because, okay. Sorry for the pause, folks. I'm just looking at the different images and thinking about which one I want to use. Now I'm going to bring this one up just real quick, just as an FYI. A little tip, I talk about this in my light painting workshops. On the right side of the screen here, or the right half of the screen, but the left side of this image, you see all this white in the image. And all that was my flashlight while I was painting the edge of the sewing machine. Now the key to light painting is just that, painting. It's not light pointing, it's light painting. So you're brushing, you're always moving the light. Let's go ahead and just use this, and I'm going to bring this one in. And I'm going to just show you that little bit of this is no concern at all when you're blending. So I click on the move tool, hold down the shift key, grab it, bring it over to my first layer, pop, boom, it's there. So the only thing really lit of any interest is this front end of the sewing machine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold down my Alt key, I'm going to click the layer mask, okay, grab my brush tool, make sure my brush's color is white over here on the left side. Okay, that's all for bright. So what I think I'm going to do, I noticed I was darkening it just a hair, right here, where I hope you can see the brush tool. But like I said, that's awful bright, and I don't necessarily want it quite that bright. I don't want the front of the sewing machine overpowering the back of it. So what it is, I just changed my brush color to black, which is going to hide. Remember, white reveals, black hides. And I changed the opacity to 51%. Now it could be 50, it doesn't really matter. But as you can see, I just gave it a little bit of a swipe to just take that color, or not the color, but just take that brightness down a notch. Okay, now one thing in the original image that I recall, this S-curve in the carpet behind the sewing machine on the top right hand was a little brighter, a little more defined. So let's go find the image that has that. And okay, here we go. There it is. I'm gonna open that. Oops. Didn't necessarily have to open it with camera all. Just another quick tip though. Say my original was really bright, blown out, you know, and you could probably still work with it. Maybe in camera raw you just bring down the exposure, or sometimes if you notice when I'm moving the highlights down, it's also having that effect on the exposure. So anyway, just a little food for thought. I'm going to actually bump this up just a little bit, about a half of a stop, and we're going to paint in. Okay, here we go. We're going to paint this in so it just gives a little definition behind the sewing machine. So we're going to grab it with the shift or the move tool, hold down my shift key, drag over, place it, the arrow on the image, let go of the mouse, let go of the shift key. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key. I'm going to click on the layer mask, and boom, we've got our original image back. I'm going to come over here to the left side, pick my brush from the palette. I'm going to switch the colors again. I'm going to have a white brush, and in this time I'm going to leave the layer opacity at 51% because, as I recall, this was pretty defined. Now if you notice the way I'm painting in, it's coming in. Now the thing is, if one click or one pass doesn't do it, you just give it a second click. Okay, if you notice, I'm actually brightening up the piece just behind the spool of thread there, but if you notice, I darkened the spool of thread. Not to worry, I come over and I zoom in with the navigator, bring that up. I'm going to adjust my brush size down. I'm going to flip my colors over here on the left side to black, and I'm going to just click inside this spool, and as you can see, I've brought the color that was lost back. Because for instance, here I'm clicking the layer on and off. This is after the blend, and this is before. Now notice how The rug almost seems to move in this shot. Trust me, it's not moving when I turn this on and off. It's just the difference in lighting that's actually making that look like it's lifting up. It's just the difference in direction of lighting, the texture that you're seeing. So, okay. So anyway, that's just a quick how to blend. Obviously, it's not a finished image, but it's passable. I mean, I think it's passable. I've got 3 images, or 4, because I've got the background layer. So here's 4 images. I've still neglected to work in the top left corner. I don't think that's really a deal breaker. The way this looks, it's still not bad. But it gives you the idea of just how to blend in Photoshop. I think light painting works a lot better when you have the opportunity to take your best and neglect your worst, or your, shall we say, the lesser efforts. So anyway, it's just my thoughts. It's my preference. There's no right or wrong. You know, the best thing to do is do what works for you. But I hope this helps, and hopefully we'll see you on one of our meetups or on one of our workshops. Thanks for watching.